Well, joining me in the studio is Dave Murray, involved in healthcare, and you join us today, Dave, because you're actually looking to seek a public inquiry into what's going on at Salisbury Street, the residential nursing home.
Absolutely, Paul. What I'm talking about here is how the Salisbury Street was procured in the first instance by the government, the issues surrounding that.
Should we just remind people, government owned it, didn't they? Then it was sold. The private sector built it. You involved in that?
That's correct, yes.
And then the government then sort of get it back again. Am I right?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, a lot of people say to me, David, it's very interesting that you and your investor co-directors built Salisbury Street, and then suddenly it was sold to the government, that you were paid out big money for that, and then coincidentally you win the tender to operate it. I don't think a great deal of people understand that there was a lot more to it than that. I mean, that sounds quite fantastical, and people sometimes say...
Well, I interviewed the now Chief Minister, Howard Quayle, who's Head of Health. In fact, we've put the video online. It'll be next to this one in the boxes, from 2016. And this is what I know you've got a lot of references that you're not... Well, you want to bring up.
Oh, absolutely.
What he said then and what you're saying. And this is why you're not happy with things.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps if I could just give an explanation of why Salisbury Street came about, what were our motives, what were our goals with Salisbury Street. Now, I'd built a home at Beaconsfield. I'd looked for an investor, and we built that. And the whole premise of that was that I would buy that investor out after 3 years after mature trading. And that's exactly what happened. I wanted to do exactly the same in Douglas. And I was introduced to a property developer by a friend of mine who had similar ideas. So we sat down, had a cup of coffee in Victoria Street. This particular chap, very, very dynamic, was prepared to put up 50% of the investment. And he introduced two other co-directors. One was a builder who as a director of Salisbury Care Limited, as it became, would oversee the local builders that that got awarded the contract. And the fourth member was another property developer well known on the Isle of Man. So it was an excellent team. And from my point of view, my job was to run Salisbury Street as a nursing home through our Adorn Domiciliary Care Company.
Right. So that's the government sold you the land at the stage, had they?
Well, that's right. I believe it belonged to one of the government departments. Yeah.
And you did it. You built the thing.
That's right.
Where's the problem
now?
Well,
basically, we went out to the banks. We put in £2 million. The bank put in 3.3. So it actually cost around about 5.6, I think, as a top price. However, I'd left the company by the stage maybe the final figure was gleaned. But we'd set out, and our budgets were around about 5.3 million to 5.6.
And that's what you built it for. But the government, did they pay you 8 or something then, or the company?
Well, not me,
no,
because we'll come on to that.
Yeah,
I'd left
because I was questioning in the interview. I kept, why are you buying it back from the private sector? But he had answers for that.
Well, exactly. So yeah, they paid 7.9, and I think Minister Quayle at the time mentioned there was a pot of up to 8.1 million, and they were looking to get that from the government reserves. So that's basically...
That's right, it wasn't in the Pink Book, of course, was it? This all came out...
It wasn't in the Pink Book, no, and it only used the reference of a curved ball, which I thought was quite interesting, because to me it was a curved ball to the middle wicket of the taxpayer, as hopefully I will be able to explain, which is very difficult.
Yeah, I understand, but we have to keep it as simple as possible.
Yeah, of course. So,
I mean, what are your concerns then? Come on.
Well, my concerns were that at that particular time, I think everyone should know, as Howard Quayle has said in his video, that the hospital had a number of people building up in the beds. I think he quoted 36, 38.
That's right. There was people he.
I don't know if he referred to those particularly as bed blockers. There were bed blockers, and then there were people who needed nursing care places, but. For them to pay for that, because they were solely funded by benefits, that private care homes wouldn't take those clients, into their homes, and therefore the government had to step in and have places for people 100% funded, in other words.
Yeah, he was going to have so many spaces in there for people
on benefits, and it was 40
others.
And 28 for everyone else who might be partially funded or privately funded.
And it had to be done because there was a backlog. Was that the case, or was that not the case?
Was there a backlog? Well, actually, funnily enough, there wasn't.
Do you know that definitely?
I don't know that definitely, because obviously I'm operating the home. Nobody came in.
Oh, I see.
Or very few people came in, should we say. A senior civil servant said to me, we seem to have got our figures wrong. The need for 100% funded beds through social services for individuals, they got their sums wrong or their information wrong, that the older generations on the Isle of Man who needed these beds are actually a lot more affluent than they'd first thought.
So they could pay for it, they didn't need to be subsidised by the taxpayer completely, is that what you're saying? More private.
What we're saying is they're either partially funded, they would receive a certain amount of benefits, and they would have private monies or assets which would go towards care. Because if you look at it, there's three ways, isn't there? There's those individuals for Salisbury Street that were to go into the 40 beds that were 100% funded by the government. And then there's a sort of middle tier of financial, how you would finance those beds, which is partially funded clients from the social services with private money, and then those people who can afford it 100%.
Right.
So the whole premise that Howard Quayle went to Tynwald was that the government needed 40 beds for the specific category of people that was solely funded.
And these people,
they didn't exist.
Well, did they go to other nursing homes maybe?
I'm not saying they don't exist, because they do. But
they just didn't come to you. They didn't come to
well,
yours.
it wasn't that. The 30 people sort of had evaporated by that stage. Maybe they were already housed in other nursing homes.
Did that alter your numbers and figures then?
Well, it did. I think it was more embarrassing for the government, because obviously the whole premise of going to Tynwald was that these people wouldn't be accommodated by nursing homes, which I'd also disagree with, because we take plenty of 100% funded clients through social services benefits. Going back to the point, there were very few came along, and it was actually two top civil service said that to me. One said, well, we got our figures wrong, and the other said they just evaporated. So
this inquiry, what do you want the inquiry to look at exactly?
Well, the inquiry I'd like them to look at is how they procured Salisbury Street, because as I say, it was going to be privately operated by my company, but I was taken into a meeting, told by two senior civil servants that we would not be registered because we had problems at another home, which obviously would have disastrous effects for my co-directors.
This is quite an allegation then. You're saying that you were forced into selling it. Is that where we're going?
It was coercion.
Coercion?
Yeah, coercion is probably the most accurate thing, because we'd been in a very stressful meeting before. We were asked to stay behind for an informal meeting, and there's a couple of points here. I can't go into too much detail because it could be subject
Absolutely. We don't want any legal stuff here.
But the main points were that they said that they wouldn't register us, and this is before any police investigation had been completed at our other home.
That's all now finished, is it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorted out?
Yeah, well, exactly.
Okay.
Well, we were running Salisbury Street, so how could it? But let me try and bring this around. So they basically said you're not going to be registered, and that we're also meeting with your co-directors on Thursday. So this was the Monday, and they wanted my resignation in writing. Yeah, quite amazing, isn't it? Absolutely unbelievable. Well, you can imagine myself and my wife were absolutely horrified. We'd just been beaten up in one meeting, went into another. I went into that meeting owning a 68-bedded home. I'd never talked to the directors about ever leaving, not operating. I'd invested money. Everything was fine. Came out of that meeting
without
banjaxed. That's the only word I can say. I immediately got on to the co-directors and told them that I wouldn't be registered, and this would have massive implications and ramifications for them, and I was very apologetic to them, because it was very, very embarrassing that I would pull my shares and that I would sell them back to them at the cost that I invested in.